Next up, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I wrote this crazy post. I think those of you who were here last year, I mentioned it, called Molars, Mobile, Local, Real-Time Social. Like, are your molars in? Your wisdom teeth? Well, one of the key areas, location, has now become one of the hottest areas of marketing, and possibly one of the most misunderstood because there are so many offerings. We have Matt Galligan, founder and CEO of SimpleGeo, here to help us make sense of it. SimpleGeo is a service that really pulls a lot of this together, and I'll let him explain further. Welcome.
Thanks. All right. How's everybody doing? Hopefully everybody's got their coffee so they don't fall asleep. I hope this is interesting. So my name's Matt Galligan. I'm the co-founder and chief strategy officer for a company called SimpleGeo. We build location infrastructure for developers looking to add location to apps. And today I'm going to show a couple examples of how some location got integrated into marketing campaigns and they really got it right. So first off, I want to kind of underscore this one big thing, which is location is everything because everything has a location. Literally everything has a location. You have a location. You're currently sitting inside of this theater. Your laptop has a location because it's sitting on your lap inside of this theater. Your run that you took this morning had a location because you ran around Central Park. Even your dog can have a location now in case it decides to run away. So I just want to underscore that location is a huge part of everything that exists. Now, there's a couple things that I may talk about in this talk that I want to clearly define. That's two things, points of interest and areas of interest. A point of interest is something as simple as a business, a landmark, maybe even a virtual good that's stored in a virtual place, but existing in the physical space. And an area of interest, which is cities, neighborhoods, or virtual boundaries that some call geofences. So looking at the location ecosystem, there's a whole lot more to it than just what I show on the screen here, but I'll kind of point out two things, which is the check-in apps and the infrastructure layer. The check-in apps you probably are all very familiar with. The infrastructure layer you may not be, but we're the kind of quiet partners that sit behind some of these integrations that you see that exist in the App Store today. Now, I'm going to show three examples, and each examples are going to kind of tie back to a specific piece of marketing. In this case, we're going to talk about real-time and how real-time location has impacted this particular marketing campaign and how it made it effective. So this particular campaign really intrigued me. It was called Getaway Stockholm. And the idea was that there would be this virtual Mini Cooper sitting in Stockholm that somebody would pick up and then run around the city trying to keep it from everybody else. And so I've got a short video here about it. Now, this promotion already happened, and it kind of looks a little ridiculous. And they're like, oh, it's a promo video. But what happened was really actually pretty crazy. These people were playing this game in real life. They spent an average of 5 hours and 6 minutes playing this game. Somebody eventually did end up winning it, but to see some of the videos that they took of just people blindly running around the city to try to get this thing was pretty incredible. This is a pretty amazing integration because there was relatively no personnel that needed to exist in this entire transaction. You had an app, and that was it, and that's where the virtual Mini was. And now you have an incredible amount of people in Stockholm, for instance, that were constantly engaging with your app and running around the city and always remembering that Mini brand. This is something that definitely is going to last with somebody. In a similar vein, I want to talk about augmented reality. Now, in this case, there was an augmented reality car that existed. Now, you didn't have to hold up your phone to see it, but it existed somewhere. In this case, I want to talk about a promotion that Airwalk did that I thought was really interesting. And what they did was they set up a virtual pop-up store that didn't exist physically, but when you arrived near that location, you could see it. So here's a short video about that.
This is an Airwalk store. And so is this. They are the world's first invisible pop-up stores. Stores that can be set up anywhere at any time. Simply by using smartphones, geolocation, and augmented reality. We created them for the limited edition relaunch of the Airwalk Gym, a sneaker originally made for kids who hang out in skate parks or on the beach instead of going to gym class. So that's where we set up the stores. Because the marketing budget was small, we relied on bloggers to get the word out. And on November 6th, 2010, the stores went live for one day. To get the gym, people had to be in the right location, so they downloaded the Gold Run app, found the store, found the shoe, and bought it. It got a lot of buzz. Airwalk got $5 million worth of earned media, and their e-store had its busiest weekend ever.
Tell me what augmented reality shopping is and why that's going to be a big deal this year.
Augmented reality is pretty rad.
All right, I'll skip it a little early. What was really interesting about this was there was a point of interest, but the point of interest was virtual. It was a store that existed in the physical world, but only when your phone told it did. And that was kind of interesting to me. You could use similar tactics for billboards, other virtual goods, flash mobs, to be able to kind of create this point of interest for people to be able to rally around. Really fascinating stuff. And the one thing I want to underscore here is that augmented reality doesn't have to be that thing where you hold up your phone and you see it. That's kind of ridiculous if you ask me. It can simply be a reality that has been augmented, meaning that something is different about that reality because of where you stand, because of where you are, or maybe even what your phone is telling you. Kind of lastly, I want to talk about something that actually happened a few years ago. I call this massively multiplayer real-world promotions. In this case, it's a promotion that was done by 42 Entertainment and for Halo 2. It was a promotion called I Love Bees, and it was for Halo 2. Now, what happened is when you visited this website, which looked just like a normal, grandma's beekeeper website, it would begin to kind of degrade and look like it had been hacked. And when people started to figure out that this may be connected to something else, they looked behind the code and started to see other codes existing. And what they came upon was a coordinate and a timestamp. And that coordinate and timestamp was for it was specifically for a payphone in Hoboken. And some people just arrived at this payphone, picked up the phone when the time stamp said that they should pick up the phone, and it told a story. And the story was that there was an invading army coming to Earth, and that the only way to prevent this was to be able to tell everybody else about the fact that they needed to find all these other coordinates and times that these phones would ring. People would have to arrive there, and the more phones that got picked up and questions answered correctly, that they would ward off this impending disaster. So it kind of picked up. A lot of people started showing up at payphones, and more people started showing up at payphones, and more people started showing up at payphones. It eventually became a pretty big sensation, and you had crazy fans like this that were really into it. And what was interesting is that in the course of this promotion, 500,000 people played this game. There was no interface, there was no mobile app, there was no anything. This was back in 2005, and yet people still showed up. Now, this was location-based, right? But they didn't have the GPS in their phones to make this work, right? They were just using existing GPS measures, or somebody would log into MapQuest because we used MapQuest back then. And it got people moving, and it got people out and about. It was really interesting, and it actually was incredibly engaging. And they ended up having a pretty big sales bump, though I don't have the promotion on here, or the specific information about that on here. But today, these kinds of things can be much more easily accomplished through mobile devices. So I'll leave you with this. There's tons of different ways to get location experiences, anything from using weather to geotagging media. But the point is that location is not a fad anymore. Location is definitely here to stay. And how can you use location? Thanks.